Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying time is here. That's right, we're talking Sleepwalkers as a Patreon bonus on Kill by Kill. Well, how you doing, folks? It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, and I'm coming to you from some town in Indiana that I don't even know they actually give us the name of. This is the Kill by Kill podcast. And for our beautiful Patreon supporters, we always cover a movie that Gina and I decide we actually like. Whether it's new or old or we're trying something now, we always, it just kind of comes to us in the moment. And somehow in the middle of a Twitter conversation, we just, Gina Radcliffe, why do we like Sleepwalkers?
Well, it's, you know, I think it's like cat people, except not as sexy and kind of stupid. But
Yes.
but the reason why I admire it is because it's its own special kind of stupid. I didn't take a lot of notes for this. As I said before we started recording, I put this on and watched it while I was wrapping Christmas presents.
Uh-huh.
And I did make a couple notes here and there. Like, I think that every decision made in this movie was basically met with a hearty, sure, why the fuck not? Just like, you know, and then we're going to do this. And the cats somehow are going to be able to set them on fire. And we're going to have them, you know, all the cops are really stupid. And she's going to knock their heads together like a Three Stooges sketch. And it's going to be, you know, we're going to, sometimes it's going to be kind of scary. And then it's going to be kind of funny. And then it's going to be kind of creepy, and then it's not going to be creepy. It's just everything, you know, we're just going to try everything. Yeah, sure, Steve. Okay, this is great. I love it.
Yes. This is kind of an unfiltered Stephen King in a way, because he is directly writing this screenplay.
Yeah, this is not based on a story.
No.
This is just something he came up off the top of his little head.
Yeah,
that got into his
cocaine Stephen King.
Yeah,
idea.
this is clean. This is clean King, believe it or not. But yeah, it incorporates some of his favorite things: dumb cops,
Yes,
cats,
mm-hmm.
Cool cars,
Yeah,
and characters singing inexplicable little folk songs.
Oh my God. What is the point of this? This is somehow went into a memory hole for me. And then when that deputy begins to sing this song about a guy with a pecker in his hand and one ball and he's going to a rodeo, I'm like, well, he sounds like he really knows this song, as if we all do. How has Clovis the cat not killed himself at this point if he's heard this song this many times?
Yeah, so yeah, the cop has his ride along partner is a cat.
Oh yeah, well, it's an old trope. I mean, if I had a dime for every time I saw a cop who had a cat as his co-pilot in his police car, I would have a dime, and it would be called Sleepwalker's dime. I mean, it is such a thinly veiled attempt to have one police officer to trust. The only police officer worth their salt in this entire thing is covered in fur and has 4 paws and is not a guy in a cat suit who's going to a hotel to fuck other people. It's a real cat.
Yeah, it's like I said, this movie is definitely dedicated to a thing. I don't know what that thing is, but I like it, and I think it's charming in its incompetence.
Yeah, it is a delicate balance between a couple different things. There are deep and interesting ideas buried in this movie that I think it honestly tries to reach out and unwrap to a degree. And then there is Stephen King's, you know, sort of 50s and 60s drive-in horror movie aesthetic, which you're getting full bore here. Like,
oh yeah.
This is a teenage werewolf. This is a terror of the unknown. It is very much a teenager encounters something supernatural. The police don't believe them. Sort of 50s, 60s setup. And it's one of the last times we see that before the generational shift begins to happen and the 90s really turn towards a different kind of horror movie. this is the last gasp of this. It's all practical effects. It's all, animated laser beams coming out of people's mouths.
Yeah, because they're the creatures in this they're kind of like vampires, but they don't drink blood. They take energy, and yet they also still need it from virgins. Yeah. Which that I remain unclear on that. Yeah, I also that. So here's among the list of sure, Steve, why the fuck not? Is you have this mother and son, or as you pointed out, they're not necessarily biologically mother and son, just kind of living as mother and son. Although she does refer to him as her son.
Yes, but I also wonder if that isn't a construct, because they're creatures because she cannot go out and get the thing that she has to be nourished by. She has to have some sort of servant. This
is where I was like a little about is she is a woman in her 30s, I guess, and has a teenage son, and his job is to go out and find these virgins that they have to sap away their life force from. Is it ever explained why she can't just do this herself?
I don't think it is explained. It's just their symbiotic relationship. However, whether it's mythology or biology or whatever it is, he has to collect it. He's the vessel which collects, and she is the vessel that gets fed. And that is the symbiotic relationship. So I think it's easier for people to understand them as a mother and a son, and they've been doing this for so long that they've kind of taken on those roles where they refer to each other as that. Like, this is so practiced, because as far as we can tell, they may have been doing this for centuries. So,
well, yeah, there's some kind of vague allusion to them being like some sort of Egyptian creatures, and of course the image they take are about the whitest people imaginable.
Yeah, there's my favorite kind of backstory I recently referred to as oil painting. I may revise that to textbook illustration. I love backstory via illustration.
I love backstory given by a school book report.
Who in their right mind, who has to keep up the cover of them being a supernatural being, says, how I intro this? I go into this English class and I basically tell everyone the supernatural creature I am. And they're like, oh, that's great.
Well, here's the thing. It is, considering that Stephen King wrote this, and Stephen King, I love him, but he's not a perfect writer. No, but one thing he does well generally is creating interesting characters, and it's kind of shocking how badly written this character Charles Brady is. It's like I want to see the notes, because he had not a single clue what he wanted to do with this character. At first he kind of comes off initially as a little bit of a conflicted villain, where he is in this weird kind of psychosexual relationship with his mother, but he also meets this girl that he's supposed to just pretty much just hook up with her for the express purpose of sapping her life force and passing it back on to mom. But he kind of likes her, and he kind of has feelings for her, and he kind of feels a little bad about doing this. And then he's giving the finger to cops and almost running over little kids in the street. And it's like, okay, Steve, is this character supposed to be a bad guy or kind of a little less bad guy?
I wonder if it's like because this is all unsaid. Things just happen in this movie. It's a movie where things happen. It's not very plot driven. It takes place over the course of maybe 2 days outside of the cold open. And he's either so sick of this relationship that what is supposed to be his prey, he begins to think, maybe this is a way out for me. Maybe the human side of me should be a part of this. There are no more quote unquote sleepwalkers. I could live a normal life. And then when his supernatural powers come out, he goes into full Freddy Krueger mode.
I was going to say his supernatural powers are speaking of a lot of really awful wisecracks.
And that is, I think, the worst part about it are the shtick parts, the rejoinders that seem.
Yeah, it's not scary. It's not scary. When he's attacking her in the graveyard, it's so like, weirdly violent, and yet he's all like, oh, I'm sorry, I lied. It's supposed to hurt, and it's just like, oh, shut up.
But that's the crazy thing. Like up until that point, it is a genuine push and pull. Like I like that magic dynamic, and I will keep my thirsty part of this this podcast because I'm not on Maine, so I can be thirsty. Her character isn't initially really drawn as this shy virgin, right? She's more of a virgin by choice. She hasn't found anyone she's connected with, and if she's going to get it on, she would like to connect with that person. She states this out loud. It is a layered version of that virginal trope.
Yeah, she's actually a pretty decent character. Yeah, she's a decent, as far as final girls go. She's not bad.
No, it's just that once again we're coming up to a movie that has two modes, and those modes don't always mesh together. I have to feel like people at Columbia, when this was made, saw the initial version of it, because a lot of those rejoinders are tight close-ups or ADR.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It sometimes doesn't even sound like the actual actor's voice. It was really weird.
I wonder if they added them after the fact. Like, well, kids like Freddy Krueger movies, and Freddy Krueger is funny. It undercuts the horror of it. That's what's popular. So that's what you need to do. And I don't know that it helps this story. I think they actually had a stronger story and set of characters outside of Charles than they gave themselves credit for. It's the part of the movie I don't like, but there is a lot of things that are even goofy I still genuinely like about it. There is a charm to its 50s, 60s throwback nature. I like her as a character, despite her very hungry need to eat her bottom lip. I'm surprised it survived.
Yeah, the pointing out the whole 50s and 60s aesthetic thing, that's very good, because like the only music that's played in this is like 50s and 60s music. Like the reason why we brought this up is I had posted somewhere that any movie, and it was actually inspired by The Irishman, that any movie that plays the song Sleepwalk is an automatic 3-star movie for me.
It's a good song.
And I had mentioned, yes, even Sleepwalkers, this is non-negotiable, because I knew that if I did not, someone would say, well, even Sleepwalkers? Yeah, even Sleepwalkers. Because it's a very atmospheric song. It's a little spooky. I think in better movies it could be used to, an even more chilling effect. But yeah, I think you've got that's an excellent, point that he's very much it's very much a love letter to movies from King's own teenage years.
Yeah. And I feel like it's just a little out of step for when it should have been made. Like if this had come out in 88, I think it probably would have done much better, because it does have that when boomers ruled sort of cultural aesthetic to it. Working in a movie theater, and I mean, I've never seen a dance sequence and someone in low heels go on for 3 minutes to a song she has no business dancing to. I love that song as I do. It just feels all of it to be what we would think to be terminal nostalgia, the poison of nostalgia, as everyone is.
Well, I think it was also an easy way to do the whole. She's not like all the other girls. She's a quirky girl who takes pictures and listens to old music.
Yes. Yeah. Is there a point to her having Ferris Bueller's parents?
Is there a point to a lot of the weird casting of this?
Were they a package deal at some point?
Is there a point to Otho from Beetlejuice playing their teacher?
Oh man. Listen, Otho, Glenn Shaddix, who I think he's a weapon when he's used well, he's used very well. And here he's playing sinister queer. Is that what?
Yeah, I forgot that. And I was like, oh, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Steve does not write gay characters well. No. I direct you to the opening of It, which, despite it being a very dramatic scene, it is a little bit hindered by the fact that the surviving half of the couple who experienced a horrific gay bashing is described in the book as wearing satin pants and sparkly eyeshadow.
Yeah.
God bless. I don't think at that point Stephen King had ever met an openly gay person.
It's like something he had seen on PBS. It's like I saw a documentary. Like I genuinely don't think he meant to be. I think he's had to have gotten a little better now. I mean, he has a daughter who's openly gay, but yeah.
But 80s Stephen King, early 90s, I don't think he really genuinely had much of a knowledge of them. So of course you're going to have the predatory gay teacher, and it's just like, oh God. Just cringe. Yeah. It's so cringy.
It's enough that he's like, it really honestly is enough for Glenn Shaddix to just go, hey, you're a fake and I'm going to turn you in. Like, I don't like you. I don't like your presence. I don't like you making fun of a box with 6 sides, like showing me up in class. It's enough. You don't have to add gay panic to it. It's a real weird look that it's one of those that does not jibe.
Yeah, if I went back and wrote Sleepwalkers at age 20, and what an amazing thing, remarkable achievement that would have been.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I would have just had him change when he shut his hand in the door. Just, do a Hulk thing, like the old TV series where he would just get mildly injured, and that would immediately turn him into the Hulk.
Yeah, just that he's cornered by someone who kind of has power over him, and he panics. And the car door gets shut on him, and he's like, oh, you fucking dead now. You don't have to add the other part to it. It doesn't add up to anything. It doesn't contribute. Not that I can't imagine any scenario in which it would contribute. So why is it there? Why? What are you going to do?
But we also have for stunt casting, like Stephen King and all of his friends, basically. Oh. And also
cameo-tastic.
And also Mick Garris's wife, for some reason, is in it.
I think she's in all of Mick's movies.
Oh, is she? Is she his? Is she his? What the hell's her name? Sherry Moon Zombie.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, you got like one scene where you got Toby Hooper, Clive Barker. I think John Landis shows up in one scene. Joe Dante, and of course Stephen King himself, whose cameo is actually pretty funny. I did enjoy his cameo.
Yeah,
I have a deep affection for Stephen King's cameo appearances. He's not afraid to just make himself look incredibly stupid.
No, he never casts himself as smart or good looking.
No.
Or like it's just.
Nothing will ever beat his cameo in Maximum Overdrive, of course. But this one was pretty good.
Did he just call me an asshole?
Hey, honey britches.
Oh boy.
We'll get to that one eventually.
Yeah, one of these days. I would be remiss if I didn't shout out the Arrow Theater, a local Los Angeles institution here that gets to be shot, and it looks gorgeous in this. They must have just painted it. It looks much less sleazy here in this movie than it did in 10 to Midnight, which you can, it almost feels like there's oil coming off the projector.
Everything in 10 Midnight looks scummy. It looks like it was filmed inside a deep fryer.
Oh man, we gotta put a pin in 10 to Midnight.
I was gonna say we're gonna get to that, but
we are gonna get to that because in the tribute of I think there's a subgenre that we need to explore, and that is cop supernatural procedurals. Because if we're gonna cover Cobra, which crosses over into horror, then you have to put The First Power in there, and you have to put 10 to Midnight in there.
I like it.
I'm just saying that might end up here. That might end up on Maine. I'm just saying, if you have access to those movies, you may want to check them out because I rewatched The First Power recently, and I'm like, oh wow, this movie is something.
Yeah, and 10 to Midnight is without a doubt the sleaziest movie you'll ever watch in your entire life.
The image alone of Charles Bronson handling a blowjob machine and dildos, just as if they were alien artifacts, and he's holding like, what do I do with this? What's happening here? This goes in there. What's I feel like, dude, like people have sex. They're all squinty-eyed goofballs.
There's just like you'll watch it and there'll be like just a film over your eyeballs when you're done.
Yeah, man, it is. It's gross on purpose. But what more could we possibly expect from the director of Happy Birthday to Me?
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, back to Sleepwalkers.
Can we talk about Happy Birthday to Me for a while?
I think we could do get another 2 episodes out of that at least.
Yeah, maybe we revisit it one time. I don't know. It's a goodie. There is something to the setup of this movie with the paradigm between the two of them of power, right? It comes down to she commands him to do these things. He is forced to do these things. Now, here's a young girl who wants to feel her own level of power. And to do that, she is connected with this boy, and she's like, you know what? I want to have sex. I want to fall in love. I want to connect with a guy who I think is cute, and I'm going to take control of that. And that right there in a novel, like the sex still would have been goofy, but I think that King would have made a lot more hay out of that dynamic. That sounds very Stephen King to me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah.
In movie form, it begins to be a little pat. Now, that being said, this movie also had, I did not take a lot of notes because a lot of time was spent just watching it and laughing. Laughing good laughs. Laughing at the outrageous nature of some of the dumbest fucking characters on earth getting stabbed in the back with a corn cob.
There's some decent kills in this. She's for some reason she is not entirely immortal, mostly immortal. Kind of invincible.
Super hard to kill.
Yeah, she's what are they? Because it's very strange that they are deeply frightened of cats, and apparently cats can hurt them. It might be the only thing that can hurt them. But they sort of turn into cat-like creatures themselves.
Yeah, it's like if vampires were part garlic.
Exactly. They're just sort of like, when they go into full transformation, they kind of look like vaguely like Anubis statues.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, then you should be like a cat god. Why are cats afraid of you? And not granted, it leads to some good images, like, the cats all over the house. Oh, and I should probably point out, this is a genuine warning. There's a lot of dead cats and murdered cats in this. It's pretty. This is like our second movie in a row where we're dealing with like just animal corpses everywhere.
Yeah. We get into weird themes that we don't even anticipate.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some pretty. If you are, and I'm not saying I enjoy animal death, but I know that some people are.
No, I think we should put that out there. Gina Radcliffe enjoys animal deaths. It's very apparent in the movies You and You Alone pick. Yes.
And also people falling downstairs in wheelchairs.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good 1-2 punch. And I think if you put that in your resume or your Twitter bio, I think it'll go over huge.
But yes, content warning, there's a lot of dead cats in this movie.
There's a ton of dead cats. Although unlike Fear No Evil, I don't believe any of those dead cats are real.
They look pretty. Once they're actually dead, they look pretty fake.
The cat puppet work here is stellar. Once a cat jumps on a person, it instantly becomes a Muppet, and you can really tell. Like, there is Ratso Rizzo level puppetry work going on with these cats, and I am just guffawing in joy. Once it becomes wackadoo and bonkers, it has a momentum to it that just makes me want to watch along. Does that make it a great movie? No, it makes it a fun movie. It's a fun movie to watch with others. It's just, I remember when I watched it with Becky, she's like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, I don't know. It's Sleepwalkers. That's what the fuck's going on.
Exactly. You either go with it or get out of the way.
Like, it is what it is.
Because you might get your life force sucked out of you if not. Or get stabbed in the ear with a pencil.
Yeah. Those are your choices.
Oh yeah. I don't think we continue the entire roster of weird random casting in this. We also have Ron Perlman as a really stupid cop.
Oh my God. What is up with are those his natural teeth? Has he always had such ginormous choppers?
Well, I mean, I assume that's why he eventually grew a mustache.
To compensate for the teeth. I can see that. I mean, that man has about $25 worth of teeth in a $20 mouth. And they're just that much more. It's not outrageous, but you're also wondering, how does a human being have a mouth and teeth like that?
We also have Mark Hamill, who was at the beginning of the movie and I've never seen again.
No, but you know what? Man, he looks like he's in the middle of a Top Gun sequel. I was looking at him like, why the fuck wasn't he cast in more things? I mean, I was thinking about this on my drive to do a million different assignments today. What, he could have been just a pretty face, right? Or just a lucky blonde who was in a giant movie. And he has, when he is given a chance to actually act, he's a very good fucking actor. I just wish he would get the chance to be an actor, not just Mark Hamill, guy who was in Star Wars.
Yeah, which is pretty much what he is here. There's a lot of hey, isn't that in the casting in this, and that's fine. That was a thing in The Howling, and that was funny. There was a lot of cameos from hey, isn't that in that movie, but also The Howling did a much better job than Sleepwalkers does of maintaining a tone, and that tone was dark comedy.
Yeah.
This does not do dark comedy very well.
I think it is a victim of the times. I mean, we've seen this erupt in the Nightmare on Elm Street series and other films that are sort of competing against it. Like, it took over the cultural conversation of what a horror movie is. And then everyone sort of nudges in the direction of maybe having a Freddy Krueger. And a couple people catch the edges of it. Certainly, the Child's Play series figured out a way to work with that dynamic in a completely different direction. But there are very few that are able to maintain, even attempt to get to the cult of personality that Freddy Krueger was. And here, you barely know these characters, and when they go from, oh, I should be scared of them, to oh, they've got Arnold Schwarzenegger rejoinders after they killed people. It's kind of like, do you know what you're doing? Because I don't know what you're doing right now.
Right. And if they had shown, earlier in the movie, a penchant for wisecracking, it would have made more sense. But this character, Charles, he just goes through like this, abrupt, 180 character change.
Yeah.
He's just kind of now, to be fair, you're putting on a little bit of the nice guy act for Tanya. That's the girl's name, right?
Yeah.
Tanya. But at the same time, like when he brings Tanya back to his house to meet his mother, there's a lot of his reaction shots to how the mother is responding to her. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I got the impression that he was having second thoughts about doing this.
Well, there's this sequence in which he sees that her true self is reflected in the mirror, as opposed to a vampire who disappears. When you see a sleepwalker in a mirror or some sort of reflective device like a camera, their true self is revealed. And he's like, oh, I gotta get her out of the house. And it's kind of like, well, I don't care if she sees that.
Right. I mean, why does she have to? Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing that doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't it be easier to do this if she's right there?
Yeah, like club her on the back of the head and suck out her soul.
Why is it a matter of grave importance that this happens somewhere else, and that he takes her essence and carries around some sort of internal thermos? And then they go home and fuck, because apparently that's how you transfer this life force over.
That's how everyone transfers their life force, Gina. When a man who's a son and a woman who's a mother love one another very much, they transfer life forces that they gain from virgins.
I see. I missed that talk.
Well, I'm glad we can have it now. That way you won't be embarrassed when you go off to college.
Like I said, I think there's a lot of concepts here that weren't entirely thought through.
No. But that's not to say that the contents of the stew don't come together in something that's entertaining. It's just the more you think about it, there are either elements that feel like they could be much deeper and have more meaning, but do not, or elements that seem undercooked and raw, like they were simply inserted because someone said, you have to have jokes after someone dies to alleviate the, abject terror of seeing someone's face become a rubber cat.
It's like, you're not really selling this, when you're turning it into something. Oh, okay, we're supposed to be laughing in this scene. It's like you don't have faith in your own story.
No, I do wonder if they did have faith in that, or that it was just going to be such a good time that people would be okay with it not being what they wanted it to be. And yeah, here's where we get into odd territory, because I don't want to call people out by name and say your art is bad, because that's not really true. I enjoyed this movie, but I will say, I think Mick Garris might be a better marketing and interviewer person than a director for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I off the top of my head, all I know from him is this and the TV version of The Stand, which is not great.
It has moments.
It has moments of great potential. The moments that come directly from the book are the best parts. Like there are certain scenes where it felt like he directed it with the book open. There's a key moment in which one of the characters is escaping New York City through the I believe it was the Holland Tunnel. Mm-hmm. And it is a terrifying sequence in the book, and pretty effective in the TV movie. I look forward to how it's going to look. I think is it CBS All Access is going?
Yes, they're going to do a miniseries.
Yeah, I am cautiously optimistic about how that's going to turn. I'd rather see it as an HBO or FX level miniseries because I worry about budgeting constraints and restrictions for content. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I mean,
Warner Brothers had their chance and they fucking fumbled that ball. So
yeah, so he's a very workman-like director. There's no sort of, unlike a lot of horror directors, there's no personal touch. He's just very, okay, I've got the script, I'm going to shoot this scene.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's a reason why all these other directors and horror emissaries are in this movie. And it's because they're his friends.
Right.
They're the masters of horror. And Mick Garris is the guy who says, he makes the reservation at the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, they're hanging out with their pal Mick, I mean.
And I also feel like Stephen King respects him because Mick Garris goes, what you have written is really good. And I think there were a lot of people who picked up Stephen King's books who were making movies and said, I like this idea. The rest of this is trash and is irredeemable.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that he changed a single thing in that script. No. I think that for all I know, King might have personally selected. I know that he did for The Stand. So clearly he was happy with how this turned out, which is fascinating.
But I think it's because King has a very populist view of what good is. And Sleepwalkers' aim is to be this wacky time at the movies where you just don't know what's going to happen next. And oh my God, she's a cat person. And oh, this is kind of creepy. Now this is just wacky. Now that's gonzo. And he likes that. He likes that. He wants to view a movie to a certain degree, or television show, when he had that EW column where he would just give 10 things that he liked. He has a very populist view, and in his mind, this is as good as anything else. He doesn't, I don't think, differentiate between high-low culture. He just likes culture.
Which is interesting because if you read, and I'm pretty sure you have, Danse Macabre, he has now granted, this was 1980, 1981, so you're talking Stephen King in his 30s. And he has an entire chapter on how much he hates television.
Yeah.
Just absolutely. I mean, it was kind of painfully pretentious.
At the time,
well, yeah, it was, to be fair, it was garbage. Yeah. And then barely a decade later, all of a sudden it was like the best thing. He was constantly writing about this show and that show. And now he's like a comfortable boomer talking about how much he enjoys Chicago PD and shows like that. Basically shows everybody our age's parents watch. Yeah. But I really do think that one of the reasons he did not like The Shining as far as a film adaptation is it had nothing that he liked in horror movies in it. It didn't have a cool soundtrack. It didn't have neat cars. There was no the real monster on the screen. I mean, I really do think the reason why he liked the TV version better, just God help us all, is because it fit more with his vision. It didn't, how that vision looked wasn't great, but okay, this had everything. This had the topiary monsters coming to life. This had everything, this was my funhouse vision of what this hotel looked like. Whereas with Stanley Kubrick's version, it was very sterile. It wasn't it was not a very traditional horror movie. A lot of it was in the viewer's mind and not really, it was more suggested than actually seen. Yeah. And I think that I think that's just not his bag as far as horror is concerned.
Yeah. So that brings another Stephen King connection that I would like to explore ever so briefly. Since we've talked about The Shining, let's bring in Dr. Sleep to this, because we've talked to a degree in Nightmare on Elm Street about Wes Craven being an idea machine, right? He had ideas that were sometimes very outside of his ability and scope to actually wield. Shocker would be one, where that idea is interesting as a sort of Nightmare on Elm Street riff, but his ability to shape that into a real movie, I would call into question. I remember liking it at the time, and I've tried to watch it a couple times since. I'm like, this is laughably bad. Whereas Red Eye is akin to a fucking Hitchcock movie. It is a Swiss goddamn watch. That is a level of skill that is hard to replicate. And then in the third act, it goes fucking nuts. And you're already got me on the edge of my seat. His ability to kind of like flip-flop between, does this guy know what he's doing, to, oh my God, that guy knows what he's doing, is rare and unbelievable. But those ideas before his executions were always intriguing, interesting. Stephen King's kind of the same way in that not everyone can translate them, or sometimes he'll have an idea that he reworks and reworks and reworks, like Greaser Bullies. Like he's gone back to the well on Greaser Bullies.
Greaser Bullies, dumb cops. Like I said, that's something, no matter where his story takes place, the cops always seem like a bunch of hayseeds.
Yeah. Like quartets, like groups of people that come together for a singular purpose. And you're like, why would these people ever work together? And it turns out they all have one skill that will help them, most of them survive, or at least enough of them survive to the end. That's a vital Stephen Kingism.
Do you think that Stephen King kind of cribbed his own work with Sleepwalkers for certain aspects of Dr. Sleep?
Yes. You're the person I wanted to talk to about this, because after seeing them kind of close, it does feel like Sleepwalkers and the what is the tribe of Rose?
The True Knot.
The True Knot. These are similar ideas enough that it feels like it's stuck in the back of his head and goes, you know what? I didn't wind that correctly. What if I changed this and manipulated that? And instead of, random virgin souls, it's, supernatural abilities. Okay. And then there's this and that, but they still consume them. And it feels like he's reworking elements of Sleepwalkers into a better narrative. And of course, because it's long form, he's able to give those characters and that concept a bit more heft and weight to it.
And yet when you sometimes with King's work, as we see, his adaptations tend to be a little better when he doesn't write them himself.
Yes.
Like I liked Dr. Sleep. I thought it was pretty good. I am very glad that the changes that Mike Flanagan made in it. I found that the twist in the book of spoiler that Danny and the little girl are related. I was like, no, that's dumb. I don't like that. You don't have to.
We don't like anyone who's related.
Yeah, I really don't like surprise. We're related. I think that's a really cheap and lazy twist in anything, in horror or fantasy or anything like that. It's you don't have to. The fact that Dick Halloran had the same ability means that this is not something like, oh well, everybody that has this is somehow an ancestor of each other. No, you don't have to do that. That's not necessary. You can make them connected solely because of this ability, and it worked. It worked perfectly fine. Thinking that up until the point that they decided, oh well, this little girl it was her mother that was the product of an affair Jack had with a student, and I'm like, no, I don't. You don't need to do that, and they completely did away with that in the movie, and to the vast improvement of it.
Yeah, it almost the distaste I have for it is I don't believe Jack was ever charming enough in either the movie form or the book form to seduce anyone outside of his actual
it's
wife.
just it felt like it wasn't even that for me. It doesn't even, I didn't even question whether that seemed plausible or implausible. It just seemed like such a soap opera twist that well, now we have to really, and I think it was because in the book Danny was a little more conflicted about whether or not he wanted to help this kid and, or just kind of, deal with his, his trauma and his pain on his own. And then, well, now you have a reason to because she's your niece. And it's like, no, come on. You don't have to do that. You don't have to give someone that much of a compulsion to help another human being, especially when that human being is a child.
Yeah. The best thing about adaptation is taking what works and leaving behind what doesn't for what you're adapting the material to. Whether or not you're adapting a television show into a movie or a book into a TV show or whatever it is, you take the elements that can work for the product that you're making and then go, these are nice, or maybe I don't care for them, but they don't work here, and therefore we don't need them. It's the reason the Harry Potter series started to improve from 3 on, because instead of using the books, as you said, well, like Mick Garris with the book open going, okay, this is what happens next. Let's film it. It's people going, well, what would make the best movie? And then they went ahead with that. And that's how I feel like Flanagan is with Stephen King. He just dials into what's important for you to get across for that film version. Like, the book's not going anywhere, baby. Let's make a movie.
Right.
And he's very, very good at that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that, this was something, that he thought he still had more to say about, the idea of taking someone's energy. I mean, that's a running thing in his stories is otherworldly beings that feed on someone. I mean, it's the whole basis of Pennywise. He feeds on people's fear, the energy that comes off them when they're scared of something. That's a well that he's dipped from, to varying degrees of effectiveness for many years now.
Yeah, the Man in Black uses people with the Shining to break the beams of the tower in order to bring it down. That's all in Hearts of... Boy, this has become a Stephen King universe podcast all of a sudden. I find it really interesting.
I do, yeah. I mean,
I could go off on it for hours. If only had shit to do with Sleepwalkers. But...
Well, it plays into it. Like, I don't think he just, comes up with these things for the hell of it. I mean, I think to him, they all are some, part of a bigger story. It's just not all of it works.
Yeah. Some beams are more broken than others. The Sleepwalker beam is particularly broken, especially when the sheriff mentions Castle Rock. Like, you're in fucking Indiana.
Yeah, I was like, it's like we know who wrote the movie.
We get it. We saw him on screen like 20 minutes ago.
You don't have to basically turn to the camera and wink, ding,
wonk.
I would actually like to see this as a short story. I think it has some interesting points that it could have expounded upon. I would have liked to have seen more of their life on the road. Mm-hmm. Like one interesting, if we're going to continue diving deep into the Kingiverse, one of the things I really liked about the book Firestarter is how basically the first quarter of the book is Charlie and her dad just traveling around the country trying to escape from the shop. And I found the practicalities of that very interesting. The little, mundane details, like how they go and, break into his grandpa's, cabin in the woods, and how they just kind of manage to maintain some, level of peace for a little while before the shop shows up. I found that all very compelling and building up a sense of dread. And it would be interesting to see that from the point of view of the villains, just basically kind of how they just, and he did this with Dr. Sleep. Yeah. He wrote a lot of it from the perspective of Rose the Hat and her gang, and how they would track down their prey, and how they would go through, how the taking of the life force, how they had them these little like thermoses, which I thought was an interesting touch that they carried over from the book to the movie. I find that sort of, mundane detail interesting, and it creates to me a more rich, robust setting of place and time, instead of just jumping into, well, here's, Blondie McHandsome guy kind of, coming into this small town, and, he's a bad guy.
Yeah. But that is the form of this is what the function follows, because it's meant to be a 50s, 60s drive-in movie.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, those aren't exactly rich in character studies. So.
True. It's a dichotomy, but it's probably, to me, more than the sum of its parts. Its parts, I feel, are, some are interesting, some are broken, some are wildly out of date. It's a little weird, but I feel like every time I watch it, I get a little something more out of it. And all right, we're down to Machinamic. She is so fucking good looking in this movie. It is.
Yeah, she's adorable. She's very cute.
I mean,
everybody is very attractive. Alice Krieg is as what's the mother's name? The mother. We'll just call her Mom.
Yeah, she's Mary Brady.
Yes, she's probably, to horror fans, she's probably most familiar for Ghost Story. She was the last person to see Craig Wasson before he fell out of a window with his dinghy flapping all over the place.
Yeah.
But she has this very, ethereal beauty. Mm-hmm. The actor that plays Charles, he's okay. he's unremarkable, just a very generic, blonde teen idol type actor. But yeah, I mean, the women in this are exceedingly attractive.
I mean, he at least knows how to make people look good. Because wow, she is, and she's like Bugs Bunny in this. Like, her face can't stop moving. It is the antithesis of what, you hear a lot of actors, like, you show up, your face doesn't move, don't blink. Like Michael Caine's like, don't blink. I don't know why I didn't win an Australian accent. All of a sudden, all my accents go Australian. It's all Mystery Science Theater 3000s. Did I mention I'm Australian? I will not be getting into a Michael Caine off with anyone anytime soon. But he's, you have to present a picture, right? Every frame is a portrait. But not her. No. Eyebrows go up and down. She's constantly biting her lip. Her eyes are darting throughout the scene like there's a fly in the shot. And I am utterly charmed. I don't care. It just feels like she's a human being who's been captured on film, not someone who's just presentational. Like, there's Alice Krieg here is doing sort of a classical look, right? She's this regal nether creature from another time and place, and she carries herself with a continence. Am I saying that right? A countenance.
Countenance. I thought you were trying to do an English accent.
No, I'm a stupid person who has to look up words when they write. So, but Mashkine, it just feels real to me. She feels like a flesh and blood human being in this. And I am utterly charmed. Part of that, yes, I find her. And at the time, I was enraptured.
Well, yeah, this was the Twin Peaks years. So yes. She was on that very memorable Rolling Stone cover. It was her and Sherilyn Fenn and Laura Flynn Boyle, and that was probably one of their most iconic covers from the 90s. So yeah, she was riding mostly on that. And playing
very beige and very hot.
And playing, she was playing a different kind of character than she was on Twin Peaks. Here she was just kind of like the nice sweet girl, and she pulls it off pretty well. Like I said, I like her in this. I think that the character is pretty good. If Charles is just all over the place, he kind of figured out what he was doing with her, which is probably good. I mean, if either of the characters had to be badly written, better be him than her, because she's the one the audience has to be ride or die with.
Yes, yeah. You are naturally you want her to find a way out of this. I don't know whether or not any of her parents live.
Her mom does. Her mom, like the cop, one of the cops who survives, like picks her up and like carries her away, and she's like yelling about something. But I don't know about the dad. I don't know about Ferris Bueller's dad.
He really,
he took a face full of glass pretty hard.
This movie is rich in gouge work.
Oh yeah, it's like I said, it's got some good. I mean, if you're watching it strictly for gore, it's pretty good. I mean, you've got a pencil to the ear. You've got Ron Perlman's death. It's pretty grody. He gets his fingers bitten off, and then he gets his arm broken, and then he gets stabbed with the broken bone. That was I forgot about that. I was like, oh, that's gross.
She has an ability to stab people with relatively blunt instruments.
Yeah.
That she can drive a corn cob into a man's back, his spine, no less. Shows that you are not fucking with but their strength strength to come and go. Like she can.
Yeah, like she can do that, but Charles cannot overtake a woman, a teenage girl who's probably he probably outweighs her by a good 25 to 50 pounds, and he can't seem to overcome her because he's too busy making wisecracks.
yeah, he's expending his energy on wisecracks and taking damage that apparently actually damages him, which is like, well, why are you laughing off losing your eye if that's, that amount of blood loss is going to cause you to die? You dum-dum? Suck that soul already. Speaking of stupid people, I would be remiss if we do not discuss, for ever so briefly, the recipient of that corn cob in the back, Deputy Rayburn, who is, I don't know who this actor is. I don't know if we ever saw him again. But holy fuck, he has a level of dumb that's radiating off of him that is second to none.
Yeah, for some reason, and again, this is that weird, well, is it funny? Is it scary? Well, we don't know. It changes from scene to scene. Is that every single one of the cops on this force, except for Simpson, who is originally Clovis's owner, and the sheriff, are incredibly stupid, and like not even just like mildly forgetful or a little bit comedically bumbling. I mean, busting into a house with your firearm pulled, and then when somebody says, "Oh, you were supposed to wait on my sign," it's like, "Oh, I thought you gave your sign already." Yeah. Just like bumping into each other and not ducking in the face in the face of danger. They are just complete and utter morons. And I don't know. I don't find maybe this is just me. Yeah, after having seen a lot of movies, I don't find stupid cops funny. I don't think it's a funny trope. I don't think, regardless of the genre of the movie they're in, I don't care for it. I don't think it's funny. And it's really, really pushed past its natural limits in this movie because everybody is an idiot.
Yeah, Deputy Rayburn mentions that his wife died and that this is the best meal he's had since his wife died, and all I can think is she must be so happy now that she's dead.
Yeah, and like at one point after Charles attacks Tanya, he says something like, do her parents know that she's not a victim of a category 2 sexual assault or something like that?
Yes.
And I mean, why would the sheriff assign him to watch over her? That's the thing. I think that's the thing that bothers me about this trope so much is the people in charge of these cops must know how stupid they are. So how do they, here, you go into the building and get the masked marauder, you moron who tied your shoelaces together. And it's such a testing of audience goodwill and plot logic that it really, really bothers me. And it shouldn't. I know it shouldn't. It's a dumb thing. It's an easy laugh. I don't care for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it would have been more effective if you had this, middle-aged mom in her little granny gown come out of the house and just lay waste to a bunch of efficient cops instead of, a bunch of boobs, falling all over each other.
Yeah. It would be more interesting if instead of he can't shoot her because he is a dumb fuck, that he can't shoot her because he has a concussion because his head hit the wall or something. It would, I don't know.
Or that she uses kind of mind control, something,
glamour magic.
Yeah, just don't have her be able to overcome them because they're a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
It takes away the dramatic value.
It's mistaking something interesting for something compelling.
Yeah, I don't like, if you're going to make your horror movie slapstick, make it slapstick all the way. Don't just abruptly turn it slapstick for like the last 20 minutes. Yeah.
I feel like we talk about wrestling tones a lot.
We do, because I'm a writer. I do write some fiction, and it's important to me that you pick a tone and you stay with it. And it bothers me when people they just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks method of writing something.
Yeah, I would agree. Any other final thoughts on Sleepwalkers or Stephen King's Sleepwalkers?
I do. Oh, we forgot to mention also that among the other fascinating choices, it also has an end theme song by Enya.
Oh yeah, yeah. That comes out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, which again, I mean, if your movie was serious and creepy and that kind of would have stuck the landing with that song because it was a kind of an eerie song, but instead it was just this, again, weird abrupt change. But that being said, I do enjoy this movie. And I'm not gonna try to convince anybody that it's a hidden gem. It's very silly, and like I said, probably of the 147 ideas that Stephen King threw out for this, probably about a quarter of them really work. But I like what works. I like the mythos of the Sleepwalkers because and this. I could go on for another hour of this. I enjoy anything having to do with vampire mythology. So I would have liked to have, I'll watch anything, pretty much anything has to do with vampires, no matter how bad it is. I just find it very entertaining. I would have liked to have found out more about, their origins, which is why I said I think it would have worked better possibly as a story to kind of learn more about them. But, I liked Mädchen Amick. I think she was very charming. I think she was an effective, I believed her as a teenager which is, which as all of you know from listening to this, is something that we bag on a lot, is unconvincing teenagers in movies. I don't know how old she actually was in this, probably in her 20s, I'd guess, but she seemed pretty convincing, both physically and personality wise. I liked what you said about how she wasn't like a repressed virgin. She was just, a virgin who was making the choice to be so. And I think that was, particularly for 92, that was still kind of a daring choice. Pop culture still was, dating at the time that if you were a virgin, it's because nobody wanted you. And that wasn't always the case for a lot of young women. It was, well, no, I just haven't found the right one yet. And I think that for a boomer writing, the script, I think that's, that's a pretty bold choice on his part. And I admire that.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where, I guess they have to introduce it because in a way they're trying to make the implication that finding a virgin is harder to do.
Well, that's been a gag in movies for a long time. It was a gag in Andy Warhol's Dracula. It was a gag in the Monster Squad, and it's a little played out. But I think this, I don't know that it was necessarily that they were implying that it was difficult, just that it was more difficult to not be noticed that they were seeking out virgins.
As one does.
As one does.
So I highly recommend Sleepwalkers. I think it is a fun, breezy 90-minute flick that comes and goes and gives you a few laughs and some cool little gore effects, and it's a wonderful window into 90s filmmaking. I mean, name another movie where you get to see 30 cats all running in the same direction. I can't imagine how difficult that was to actually carry off. And all those cats are real. And the cats who get torn apart are all delightful Muppets.
Yeah, there had to have been, I didn't wait around to see, but there had to have been a cat wrangler listed in the credits.
Multiple by the looks of it. That's a lot of fucking cats. And I also love that when they cut away to cat reactions, and you'll get 3 cats who are all looking in the right direction, and there's always 1 or 2 who are like, I don't fucking care.
Because those are cats, and that's what cats do.
Yeah, we'll tear her apart whenever we get the chance. Meanwhile, there's a paw to be licked. So that just about does it. Next month will be a listener choice. If you are in the $10 level, one lucky person will get to choose a movie to amaze and confound us for an episode. And then in the new year, we will, of course, we will finish up Fear No Evil here in December and move on to, very briefly, New Nightmare. And then I think we're going to cover Cobra.
Yes. I'm really looking forward to this new this new dive into 80s the pulp crime films. That makes me extremely giddy.
Yeah, I think they kind of crossed the line into our methodology, and it's important to pick the fun ones. I think the unfun ones, like if we were doing like Fallen with Denzel Washington, it'd be a real snooze, baby. But Cobra is not a snooze.
Oh no, absolutely not.
We have to talk about robot photo shoots.
I was gonna say we're gonna spend an entire episode just talking about that.
Cutting up pizza, ripping people's shirts off so you can see their lavalier mics. That movie is fucking nutso to the nth degree. And then eventually we'll get to Freddy versus Jason, and we'll be freed of the curse that was placed upon us by the witch in the forest.
Eventually.
That does it, everybody. Thank you so much for supporting us in this podcast. Your financial and social media support is vital to our continued survival, and we really do appreciate it. I hope this was as fun for you as it was for us. Until next time, for myself and for Gina,